Okay, good. So we discussed about what is auto wiring and why we need to cover auto wiring, right? Auto wiring is used to perform dependency injection. So when you use auto wiring, IOC container will perform dependency injection for our classes. So this auto wiring we can use at setter method, we can use at constructor, and we can use at field also. If you use at the constructor, then it is going to perform constructor injection. If you use at the setter method level, it is going to perform setter injection. If you use at the variable level, then it is going to perform field injection for us. Okay. So setter injection, constructor injection, and field injection. When you go for the field injection, it is going to use reflection API to perform the auto wiring. Okay. And auto wiring will work based on modes concept, guys. What are the modes available for the auto wiring? By name is available, by type is available. What is the meaning of by name? What is the meaning of by name? Based on the variable name, it will identify dependent object. Based on the name of the variable, it will identify dependent object. Then, what is the meaning of by type here? Based on the type of the variable, it will identify the dependent object. Okay, when you go for by type approach, there is a chance of getting conflict problem. Okay, so how we are avoiding the conflict problem in the auto wiring? By using qualifier with the name of the bean, or we can use at the rate primary annotation. What is the purpose of qualifier? Identify the right bean based on the name of the bean. What is the meaning of a primary? There are two beans eligible for auto wiring. We want to make one bean as a primary for the auto wiring. So with this we understood what is auto wiring and how to work with auto wiring. Next one, let us talk about a concept called runners in Spring Boot. Let us talk about a concept called runners in Spring Boot. So we have seen inside the run method, the runners will get be called. Okay. So what is this runner and why we need to go for runner in the Spring Boot? So here to execute, runners are used to execute any logic only once when the application got started. Runners are used to execute any logic only once when the boot application got started. Okay, IOC container is going to start our application will be started by run method. Run method will print banner. Run method will start IOC container. Then we are going to use the runners in the Spring Boot. So now let me show you how to create one runner in the project. Close all these things. File, new, Spring Starter project. So I'm creating the project with a name called 07 runners application. Okay, runners application I'm creating here. Type is Maven. Okay, everything is good. No need to select any dependency. Next and finish. So with this, my runners project got created. So this is a simple Spring Boot application that we created with a normal starter. I have not added any extra dependency in the project. So if you create a project without selecting any dependency, then we are going to get Boot starter by default, which is used to start our application. Start class is also available. Start class is also available. Let me go here, run this application as Spring Boot application. Let me go here and run this application as Spring Boot application. Now, application started, IOC container also started. Go inside this run method. Okay, that is a predefined method. Internally, it is calling one more run method. Go inside that, calling one more run method, go inside that. So we have seen what is the logic available in the run method. Bootstrap context will be created, listeners will be started, environment will be configured, banner will be printed, IOC container will be started. Okay. After all these things are completed, finally, run method is going to call one method that is called call runners. So what is the meaning of runner? Runners are used to execute any logic only once when the boot application got started. For example, when my application is started, I want to delete the data available in the temporary tables. Okay, delete temporary tables data. Delete temporary tables data. So there are some tables available. Those tables are temporary tables. So when the application is running, lot of data we are going to insert. When I am restarting the application, I want to delete the old data. That logic should be executed only one time when the application is started. So that kind of logics can be implemented by using runners in the Spring Boot. And second scenario, load the data into cache memory. So there is some static data available in the database. Static data nothing but that the data will not modify. So the same data, for example, countries data is available, guys. Now let us take a scenario. We are having one table in our database. The table is countries table. Countries table is available. That table contains country ID and country name. That's it. ID name. ID 1, that is India. ID 2, USA, like that. There are so many records available in this table. Now, my application want to get the data from the countries table. So to display the countries at the time of user registration, I want to get the countries data. So that countries data is required for my application. Every time, if my application is communicating with the table to get the data, every time we are going to get the different data, or every time we are going to get the same data. Guys, every time we are going to get the different data from the table, every time we are going to get the same data.
Same data.
Every time we are going to get the same data because that data is static data. Because that data is a static data. What is the meaning of static data? What is the meaning of static data? That data is not going to change. So instead of getting that data from the database every time, what I will do is, in my application, I'm going to create one cache. Cache means temporary storage. So in my application, I'm going to create one cache. When my application is started, I want to get the data from the table. I want to store in the cache. How many times we will read the data? We will store in the cache every time or only one time? Only one time. So you have such a kind of requirements in the project. When you are having such a kind of requirements in the project, you need to take the data from the database only one time and use the same data multiple times in the project. So when you want to implement that kind of requirement, right? Delete the temporary tables data when application started, when app started. Load static tables data, load static tables data into cache memory when application started. So these kind of requirements will be there in the real time. Those requirements we are going to implement by using runners concept in the Spring Boot. Runner is nothing but one Java class only. That Java class will be called by Spring Boot run method when our application is started. How many times our Java class will be executed? Only one time when the project is started. So read the point. What is a runner in the Spring Boot? Runners are used to execute any logic only once when the boot application got started. So what I need to do here? What kind of use cases will be available to go for the runner? Use cases for the runner. Delete the temporary tables data when the application is started. So in my project, some temporary tables are available. When the application is started, I want to delete the data from those tables. And what is the second use case? load static tables data into cache memory when the application is started. All the two requirements should be executed only one time when the project is started. That kind of implementation we can do by using runner. So we have two types of runners in the Spring Boot. We have two types of runners in Spring Boot. What are those two types of runners? One is called as application runner. First runner is called as application runner and the second one is command line runner. These two runners are interfaces, guys. Application runner and command line runners are the interfaces. So if you want to work with the runner in the Spring Boot, then you need to implement any one of the interface. Application runner and command line runner. In these runners, these are functional interfaces, guys. We can call them as FI, functional interface. What is the meaning of functional interface? Only one abstract method will be available. So that's why they are called as functional interfaces. Now, what is the difference between application runner and command line runner? So there is not much difference here. The only difference is method parameters. Run method parameters are different for the command line runner run method, application runner run method. So can you guys tell me what is a runner in the Spring Boot? What is runners in the Spring Boot? Runners are used to execute any logic only once when the application got started. Okay, runners will be called as part of run method. Our runners will be called by Spring application dot run method. Runners will be called by Spring application dot run method. Runners are used to execute any logic only once when the boot application got started. Runners will be called by run method. What are the use cases for the runners? Delete the temporary tables data when the application is started. Load static tables data into cache memory when the application is started. How many types of runners available in the Spring Boot? There are two types of runners available in the Spring Boot. What are those two types? One is called application runner. Second one is called as command line runner. Run method, run method. Clear? Good. Now go here and create one Java class. Okay. New class. Now. So here I'm taking one class as part of the beans package. As part of the beans package, my app runner. My app runner. So this is a normal Java class now. I want to make it as a runner. So let's go and implement one interface which is called as application runner. So as we discussed, application runner is a functional interface. In that, what is the method available? Run method. One single method, one abstract method is available. When you are implementing that interface, we need to override that run method. What is the parameter of this method? Application arguments. Okay, let me write this one. System.out.println my app runner run method call. Yes, I'm writing it. I want to represent this also as a Spring Bean. To represent this class as a Spring Bean, I'm going to use one annotation that is called @. Okay, now let me go and start the project. Run as boot application. Go to console. And can you see my runner method got executed? Am I calling that runner method? Spring Boot is calling that runner method. Spring Boot is calling that runner method. Now let me create one more runner, new class. In the beans package, I'm creating one class which is my CMD run. My app runner, my CMD run. Implements the interface which is command line run. In that we have a run method. Okay, system.out.println my CMD runner run method call. Let me represent this as a component. Let me represent this as a component. This is application runner with a component. This is command line runner, which is component. Go to our application and start this project. Run as boot application. Now you can see that command line runner method called, application runner method also got executed. What kind of logic we will write inside this run method? What kind of logic we will write inside this run method? Come on.
Static.
What kind of logic we will write inside the run method?
Delete temporary table data and then load the static data.
Right. Anything that we want to execute only one time in the application. When my application is started, I want to execute the logic only one time. That logic we are going to implement by using runner concept. So who is going to call these runners, guys? Programmer will call the runner, or run method will call the runner. Who is going to call the runner? Programmer will call the runner. The boot application will call the runner. Inside the Spring Boot, we are using start class. Start class contains a main method. Inside the main method, we are calling our run method. Inside the run method, the logic is available to call the runners. So if you see the difference between command line runner, application runner. Application runner run method is taking application arguments object as a parameter, whereas command line runner is taking string variable argument, string parameters it is taking. Okay, so whatever that you are getting as a parameter to the main method, the same parameters will go to the runners as a parameter. So if you pass any command line arguments as the input for the main method, we know command line arguments. What is the purpose of command line arguments, guys? What is the purpose of command line argument? Whenever you are running a Java program, if you want to pass some dynamic data to the main method as a parameter, then you can go for command line arguments. Whatever the command line arguments you are supplying to the main method, same arguments will go as a parameter to our runner class run method. Runners, two types, application runner and command line runner is available. Those are interfaces only, functional interfaces. Only one abstract method is available. When you want to create your own runner in the Spring Boot, then you need to develop one Spring Bean class by implementing command line runner or application runner interfaces. What is the meaning of implementing an interface? Overriding the abstract method. There is a run method which is abstract method. We are overriding the run method. Whatever the logic that you want to write inside your run method, you can write. Here I am writing SOP statement. Here you can write delete temporary tables data and load the data into cache. Anything according to your project requirement. Or else I have a requirement. When my project is started, I want to send one email to the manager. Application start. Okay. So how many times you will do that? Only one time when the application is started. So any such kind of requirement you have, the logic should be executed only one time. Then we can go for runners concept. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? Yes, perfect. So public class, my CMD runner is implementing command line runner. So with this we understood what is runners in the Spring Boot. And the next one, the next topic that is pending for us, Bean life cycle. There is a concept called Bean life cycle concept is available. What is the meaning of Bean life cycle? What is the meaning of a bean? What is bean? First of all, what is bean? Come on.
The Java classes which is maintained by IOC container.
Which is managed by IOC container.
As well as
the Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as Spring Bean. Bean nothing but the Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as Spring Bean. Okay, so IOC container will take care of bean life cycle. When I say bean life cycle, creating object and managing the object, creating the object, managing the object and destroying the object. Creating the object, managing the object and destroying the object. All these works will be taken care by IOC container. So what is Spring Bean? The Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as Spring Bean. Any Java class. Okay. So the Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as Spring Bean, and IOC container will take care of bean life cycle. So what is the meaning of bean life cycle? It is going to take care. IOC container will create the object. IOC container will manage the object. IOC container will destroy the object. We have several annotations to represent. We have several annotations to represent Java class as Spring Bean. Okay. So we have seen one annotation called component annotation. We can use service annotation. We can use repository. We can use bean, and we can use controller. We can use REST controller. So like this, there are several annotations available to represent our class as a Spring Bean. Right. So we have bean life cycle. What I want to do is, when IOC container creating the object, when IOC container destroying the object, I want to execute some life cycle methods. You attended servlets. Servlets having a life cycle. So what are the life cycle methods of the servlet? Init method, service method, destroy method. When the object is created for the servlet, that init method will be called. When customer send a request to the servlet, service method will be called. When the servlet is removed from the container, destroy method will be called. Similarly, we have JSP lifecycle, JSP init, JSP service, JSP destroy. We have thread lifecycle also. Java threads are available. Thread lifecycle. Can you tell me what is thread lifecycle? Start the thread, start, running, new thread, starting, running, sleep, and dead. Okay, thread lifecycle methods also available. Similarly, when our Java class object is managing by IOC container, I want to manage the life cycle of the bean. So any Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as a Spring Bean. That IOC container will take care of our bean life cycle. Nothing but it will take care of creating the object. It will take care of managing the object. It will take care of destroying the object. Now, when the IOC container is managing my object, I want to execute some life cycle method. When IOC container creating object for my class, I want to execute one life cycle method like an init method. When IOC container destroying my bean object, I want to call one method called destroy method. How servlet lifecycle methods are available? In the same way, I want to execute my bean lifecycle methods. Init method, destroy method. Now, so let's go to our Spring Bean class. Let me create one bean class here. New class, some report service. Okay, I'm taking this as a Spring Bean report service. How to represent this as a Spring Bean? By using component annotation. I'm using component annotation. Now, let me take the constructor system.out.println. I'm going to show that report service constructor. Okay. Now let me run this application.java. Go to the application, run as boot application, go to the console. Can you see that report service constructor is executed after? That means after component scanning, after dependency injection, last step is runner's execution. Inside the run method, IOC container starting. What is the last step of the run method? Executing the runners is the last step of the run method. My service object is created. Now what I want is, whenever my bean object is created, I want to execute one init method, public void init method, and I want to execute public void some destroy method. Void init method, void destroy methods are available. Now, public void init method, public void destroy method is available. System.out.println, I will say that init method, report service, init call. Okay. Then next one, system.out.println, report service, destroy method got called. Okay, one method I am writing as an init method, another method I am writing as a destroy method. So I want to execute these methods as life cycle methods. When the Spring Bean object is created, I want to execute init method. When the bean object is removed from the container, I want to execute destroy method. Okay, so why we need these life cycle methods depends on the project requirement. When this bean object is created, I want to read the data from some file. When the bean object is deleted, I want to close the file connection. When the bean object is loaded, I want to get the database connection. When the bean object is destroyed, I want to close the database connection. Any kind of requirements that you have, that you want to execute. When the object is created, I want to execute some logic. When the object is deleted, I want to execute some other logic. So such kind of requirements if you have, then you can achieve them by using a concept called bean life cycle. Now, life cycle means creating the object, managing the object, destroying the object. As a human, we have life cycle. Our birth, our school, our college, job, marriage, kids, death. So that is a human life cycle. So similarly, Spring Bean is also having a life cycle. So a human being life cycle. So initially our parents will manage our life cycle. Then we will manage our life cycle. Then our kids will manage our life cycle. So step by step, the rules are going to change. Here, Bean life cycle will be taken care by IOC container. If you represent your class as a Spring Bean, IOC container will create the object for your class. IOC container will manage your object, that means dependency injection. IOC container will destroy the object also. When IOC container managing my object, I want to execute some life cycle methods. Okay, so when the object is created, I want to execute init method. When the object is destroyed, I want to execute the destroy method. Here, method names no need to be init and destroy. You can keep this as a M1 and you can keep this as M2 also. M1 method, I want to execute like a init method. M2 method, I want to execute like a destroy method. Are you guys able to follow me? Init method and destroy method. Init method and destroy method. Okay. So first let us see the init method and destroy methods are getting called automatically or IOC container executing my lifecycle methods are. Let me go to start class. Let me run as boot application. Let me run as boot application. Okay. Object is created. That is a Spring Bean. For the Spring Bean, object is created. Now, command line runner, application runner is available. Bean object is created. But lifecycle methods are executed or lifecycle methods are not executed. Lifecycle methods executed, lifecycle methods are not executed. Lifecycle methods are not executed. Are you clear? So now, why the lifecycle methods are not executed? I did not inform to IOC to execute my lifecycle method. Just I'm writing the methods in the Spring Bean. What IOC is thinking? IOC is thinking these are normal methods. Programmer will call the methods, but IOC don't know. I want these methods to be called as a lifecycle method. IOC don't know. IOC knows that my class is just Spring Bean because I'm writing @component. Then my class is considered as a Spring Bean. But IOC don't know. These methods it should call as a life cycle method. IOC don't know. It should call these methods as life cycle. Are you able to follow me? Now, so to represent these methods as life cycle methods, I'm going to use one annotation that is called post construct. What is the annotation, guys? Post construct. Another annotation which is pre-destroy. One annotation I am using which is post construct annotation. Another annotation I am using pre-destroy. What is the meaning of post construct annotation? What is the meaning of a post construct? After object creation. Post construct nothing but after object got created for your class, then execute that init method. Pre-destroy. Pre-destroy is nothing but before removing your object from the IOC container, then execute that destroy method. Are you able to follow me? What is the purpose of bean life cycle? What is a bean life cycle? Come on, what is a bean life cycle?
Creating of the bean, creation of bean, managing the bean, and then
what is a bean life cycle? Bean life cycle nothing but creating the object, managing the object, destroying the object. This is called bean life cycle. What is human life cycle? But school, college, institute, training, no job, then marriage, then kids, then death. So that is a human life cycle. Okay, step by step process. Then what is servlet life cycle? Init, service, destroy. What is thread life cycle? Start, run, running, sleeping, dead. What is the bean life cycle? Creating the object, managing the object, destroying the object. That is called bean life cycle. Who will perform this? Who will manage this bean life cycle? IOC container. So when we represent one Java class as a Spring Bean, that class will be taken care by IOC container. So loading that class, creating the object, injecting the object, managing the object, deleting the object, everything will be taken care by IOC container. When the IOC container is managing our bean life cycle, I want to execute some life cycle methods. I want to execute some life cycle methods. So when the object got created, I want to execute one method. Before deleting the object, I want to execute one method like this. When the object is created, I want to get the connection from the database. Before deleting the object, I want to close the connection with the database. Any such kind of requirement if you have, then you can implement that by using bean life cycle. What are the annotations available to work with the bean life cycle methods? One is post construct, another one is pre-destroy. One annotation we have which is post construct, another annotation we have pre-destroy. What is the meaning of post construct? What is the meaning of a post construct? Post construct annotation will represent that the method should be executed after bean object got created. So it will give the information to IOC container. Hey IOC, you are managing this Spring Bean. When you are managing this Spring Bean, you remember it is having life cycle methods. Post construct available, pre-destroy available. Post construct means once you create the bean object, then you call post construct method. If you are deleting the bean object, then you call pre-destroy method. Are you clear with my point? Managing bean life cycle is IOC responsibility. When the IOC managing the bean life cycle, we can execute some life cycle methods on the bean. Post construct and destroy. Run this application, run as boot application. Now, can you see here? Report service constructor, that means object is created. Report service, init method called. Report service, destroy method also called. Okay, so last, when the IOC container is getting stopped, it is clearing all the objects which are available in the IOC. Before clearing the object from the IOC, that destroy method got called. Are you clear? Now, if you go here, method names no need to be init and destroy. but it is recommended to write as init and destroy because already people are habituated to servlet lifecycle method. Here, if I give init and destroy, easily they will understand. Okay, this is a lifecycle method. This is a lifecycle method. If I give M1, M2, then also no problem. No problem because when to call which method depends on the annotation. When to call which method, it is depending on the annotation. Post construct and pre-destroy. Go to this application, run as boot application. Go to this application and run as boot application. Okay. So constructor, that means object got created, init method got called. So lifecycle init method got called. Method name is M1, not init. It is post construct method, it is executed. Destroy method, M2 method also called. So based on post construct and pre-destroy, IOC will understand lifecycle methods and will call those methods based on the annotations we are configuring. Are you clear with my point? What is post construct and what is pre-destroy? IOC container is managing lifecycle for the bean. When it is creating the object, I want to execute some custom logic. When it is deleting the object, I want to execute some custom logic. Then you can go for bean lifecycle. Okay. Now, if you see, all the annotations are from the Spring framework or Spring Boot. But post construct pre-destroy annotations are not from the Spring. They are from the Jakarta packages. Okay, JWE annotations. These are not from the Spring Boot. But if you write these annotations, Boot will understand the requirement and Boot will execute the methods based on the annotations. And see, so whenever I go for component or when I go for run method, all these are coming from Spring packages. Spring framework package, Spring Boot package available. But when you go for post construct and pre-destroy, can you see the packages that we have? Can we see the packages that we have? Jakarta, JWE packages. Okay, these annotations are from Jakarta packages, Jakarta package. When you use these annotations, Boot will understand your requirement and Boot will perform the operation based on the annotation you are using. So like this, you can do the lifecycle methods execution for multiple beans also. I have 10 beans. For 10 beans, I want to manage the lifecycle methods. In 10 beans, you can write post construct and pre-destroy methods. For meaningful, for readability, I'm giving the name as init and destroy. Bean lifecycle. Okay. Now, when IOC container managing bean lifecycle, we can execute lifecycle methods using below annotations. What are the annotations available, guys? What are the annotations available? Come on. One is post construct, another one is pre-destroy. One is post construct and another one is pre-destroy. Post construct annotation method will execute after bean object got created. Pre-destroy method will be executed when the object is removed from the IOC container. So are you clear? What is the runner and what is the life cycle of the bean? What is the runner, guys? What is the runner? Runners are used to execute any logic only once when the boot application got started. Runners will be called by Spring application .run method. What are the use cases available? Delete the temporary tables data when the application is started, or load the static tables data into cache memory when the application is started. These requirements can be implemented by using runners. How many types of runners we have? Two types of runners we have in the Spring Boot. One is application runner, another one is command line. Okay, we have implemented that. Next one, bean life cycle. What is the meaning of bean life cycle? What is the meaning of bean life cycle? Managing the objects, creating the object, managing the object, destroying the object is called as bean life cycle. Programmer is responsible. IOC is responsible. Programmer is responsible or IOC is responsible. IOC container is responsible to manage our bean life cycle. IOC container is responsible to manage our bean life cycle. So when IOC managing the bean life cycle, we can execute some life cycle methods. What are the life cycle methods we can execute? Post construct method, pre-destroy method. Okay. So post construct means after object creation. Pre-destroy means before deleting the object. Before object deletion. Right. So method names, is it mandatory to write init and destroy? Method names mandatory to write init and destroy, or you can write any name for the method. You can write any name for the method. Init and destroy, you can use any name for that method. Is it clear? Perfect. Next one. Guys, when we are working with Spring Boot, the classes that we are writing, right? Sometimes we will use a component. Sometimes we can use service. There is another annotation called service annotation that is also used to represent our Java class as a Spring Boot. And sometimes we are going to use annotation called @repository. That is also will represent the Java class as a Spring Boot. So component, service, repository. These annotations are called as stereotype annotations. What is the name for that? Stereotype annotations. What are those? One is component, another one is component, another one is service, another one is repository. @component and @repository. Component annotation, service annotation, and repository annotations available. These are called as stereotype annotations. So by using any one of the annotation, we can represent our Java class as a Spring Boot. So generally, when to use which annotation, guys? If your class is communicating with the DAO, okay? If your class is communicating with the DAO, then you can use the annotation called repository. For DAO, can I use a component? Yes, you can use it, no problem. Component also will represent your class as a Spring Boot. Repository also will represent your class as a Spring Boot. Sir, all three are per same. Then why to use this? Why can't we go with only one? Just for the readability. Repository means it is going to communicate with the database. Service means the classes which contains business logic. Okay? Business logic classes will represent as service. Component means generic functionality. Date utils class, some any other normal Java classes, email utils, password security, something, any kind of generic classes that you are representing as a Spring Boot, you can go with the component. If you go for service, that is also will represent your class as a Spring Boot, but in the real time, when our Java class contains some business logic, then that class will be represented with the @service annotation. When our Java class is responsible to communicate with the database, then that class will be represented with the @repository annotation. So these annotations are called as stereotype annotations. These two annotations are belongs to component family. Okay, these two annotations are belongs to component family. In the component, a subdivision, service and repository available. For business classes, we will use service annotation. For DAO classes, we will use repository. Are you clear with my point? Good. So along with these things, we can go for configuration also. What is the meaning of configuration? What is the meaning of configuration? Configuration is used to represent our Java class as a configuration. What we will write inside the configuration? Business logic we will write? No. Inside the configuration class, what methods we need to write? Inside the configuration class, we are going to write the bean method. Inside the configuration class, we are going to write the bean methods. What is the meaning of a bean method? What is the meaning of a bean method?
Method level annotation.
IOC container will create the object. Okay? Or I will create the object. IOC will not. Programmer will create the object for the bean method. IOC container will call the method. That's it. Our method will create the object due to IOC container. Then IOC container will represent our object as a bean object. IOC will represent our object as a bean object. Are you able to follow me? Yes, right. And next one, setter injection versus construct injection versus field injection. Dependency injection, in how many ways we are doing that, guys? Dependency injection, in how many ways we are doing? Dependency injection we are doing in 3 ways. So IOC container will take care of the dependency injection. Constructor, setter, field. That will be taken care by our IOC container. Now, there are 3 types of dependency injections available. Which one is better? There are 3 types of dependency injections available. Which one is better? Any guess? Which one is better?
Construction.
In the project implementation, CI is better. Okay. So when you compare setter injection, constructor injection, field injection, constructor injection is recommended. Constructor injection is recommended. Why? Because when you go for field injection, it will use a reflection API. It is violating our OOPS principle. What is the meaning of our OOPS principle? Private means we should not access outside of the class. But easily, if you want to do the auto wiring, with less code, if you want to perform the auto wiring, people generally will go for the field injection. Just you write the annotation at the variable. Then IOC container will perform injection by using reflection API. As it is violating the field injection, it is not recommended to use field injections in the project. And setter injection. When the setter injection will happen? When the setter injection will happen? After target object is created, the setter injection will happen. First, a target object should be created. After the target object is created, then only setter method will be called. When the setter method is calling, if dependent bean is not available, come on, target bean is already created, but dependent bean is not available. When it will check for the dependent bean? After the target object is created, it will check for the dependent. If the dependent bean is not available, is there any use of the target? No use of the target. But when you go for constructor injection, first dependent bean will be created. If the dependent bean is available, then only target bean will be created. If the dependent bean is not available, then target bean will not be created. So full dependency injection we can achieve when you go for constructor. If the dependent is available, then only target object will be created in the constructor. But when you go for setter, first target will be created, then it will check for the dependent. If the dependent is not available, then target object is no use unless it is created in the target object. Field injection will use the reflection API. That's why that is not recommended. So if anybody asks you, out of these 3 dependency injections, which one is better? Always constructor injection is better. Why constructor injection is better? If the dependent is available, then only target object will be created. If the dependent is not available, target object will not be created. That's why constructor injection is always recommended in the project. Are you getting my point? And so when you are having only one parameter as a constructor, writing auto-wide annotation is also optional. If you have more than one constructor, then you need to specify auto-wide annotation to tell to the string boot and to tell to the IOC container which a constructor it should use to perform the dependency injection. So which dependency injection is recommended in the project level? constructor. Why constructor injection is recommended? Why the constructor injection is recommended? Come on. Why constructor injection is recommended? If the dependent object is available, then only target object will be created. So dependency injection we can achieve fully when you go for construct. But when you go for setter, when the dependent object will be injected, after the target object is created, then setter method will be called to perform the dependency injection. If setter method is called if there is no dependent, no use, unnecessarily target object is created. What about field injection? Reflection. It is using reflection APIs that is not recommended. So that's why always try to go with the constructor injection when we are working with the boot application. Okay. And what is the meaning of tightly coupling and loosely coupling in our classes? When one class is directly communicating with the another class, then it is called as tightly coupling. Recommended or not recommended? Not recommended. Then we need to go for loosely coupling. How to develop the classes with loosely coupling? How to develop our classes with loosely
By
coupling?
interfaces.
By using a interface. So instead of taking the class variable, then you need to take the interface variable. When you take interface variable, interface object will be injected. For interface object will not be available, so it is going to inject the IMPL object. Are you clear? Very good. Now, congratulations, guys. With this, we completed our first module in our course. With this, we completed our Spring Boot. Come on. Clap. Tomorrow, I want one person from this offline batch to give the interview on this Spring Boot topics. A mock interview kind of thing. I will ask the question and you need to give the answer. Who is ready for that? You are ready. So with the camera, we are going to shoot that interview. Okay. So I will ask the question and you need to give the answer. So it is just 15 minutes of interview on the Spring Boot. Just same topics. Whatever we discussed in the class, those topics we are going to ask. Any two people want to give or one person? You also? If I upload your video, your management will check. That will be a problem for me. Okay. So you, one person, anyone else? Afghan? Your name? Aftab. Your name? Mr. Kumar and Aftab. Where are you from? Say Andhra Pradesh. Okay. You? UP, Uttar Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh. Okay. Good. So tomorrow we'll take the interview for you two people. I will record that with camera. Okay. So we have the studio set up and we will see how you are responding and I will share that video with you. Okay. So just prepare all the topics what we have discussed in the Spring Boot as of now. So basic topics. What is Spring Boot? What are the advantages of the Spring Boot? What is run method? What is boot application annotation? What is auto wiring? What is IOC container? What is dependency injection? What is bean life cycle? What is bean scope? What is a runner? Whatever we discussed in the class. So no out of syllabus question. So from the same topics we are going to ask 15 to 20 minutes of interview will be there. Okay, prepare properly. These two people. Good. Yeah. So guys, with this we completed our discussion related to Spring Boot. Let me show you the summary of the points that what we learned as of now.
Sir, is in our course API
Guys,
creation also will be included, no sir?
You don't feel that you learned complete Spring Boot. You learned basics of the Spring Boot. With
Yeah,
this
sure.
concepts, now we need to understand application development. With these concepts, we need to understand application development.
Okay, sir.
Last time we have discussed about the summary points, right? So we learnt about what is the Spring Boot, what are the advantages with the Spring Boot. We discussed about Spring Boot application development. We discussed about Boot application project folder structure, and we discussed about start class in the Spring Boot. We discussed about internals of Spring application run method. We discussed about what is Boot application annotation. We discussed about what is component scanning, and we discussed how to represent a Java class as a Spring Bean. We discussed about bean scopes, and we discussed about auto wiring. Okay, that auto wiring we learnt with by name, by type, and construct. Auto wiring with by name, by type, and constructor concept. After this auto wiring, what we have learned, guys? After auto wiring, what we have learned? We discussed about bean life cycle. We discussed about bean life cycle. In the bean life cycle, we learned at the rate, post construct, and we discussed about at the rate, pre-destroy. Post construct and pre-destroy we have discussed, and we discussed about runners in Spring Boot. What is the purpose of runners in the Spring Boot? What is the purpose of runners in the Spring Boot?
If I want to use any
Logic.
logic for one time, then I can go for runners.
Runners concept we discussed in the Spring Boot, and we discussed about banners in the Spring Boot start class, internals of run method, annotation, component scanning, representing as a Spring Bean, bean scopes, auto wiring, runners in the Spring Boot, and we discussed about banner in Spring Boot. And most important point we discussed about IOC container and dependency injection. So what is IOC container? IOC container is responsible to manage our classes in the project. IOC container is responsible to manage our classes. What is the meaning of managing the classes? Loading the classes, creating the object, performing the dependency injection, taking care of the life cycle, creating the object, destroying the object, everything will be taken care by IOC container. That IOC container will perform the dependency injection. What is that dependency injection? For injecting one class object into another class object is called as dependency injection. In how many ways we can represent our Java class? Sorry, how many ways we can perform the dependency injection? In 3 ways we can perform the dependency injection: setter, constructor, and field. So setter injection will happen by using setter method of the class, and constructor injection will happen through constructor of the class. Field injection will happen through variable of the class. Field injection internally will use reflection API. Okay, so out of these 3, which one is recommended? Constructor. Why constructor is recommended? If the first dependent object will be verified, if the dependent object is available, then only target object will be created. If the dependent object is not available, then target object will not be created. IOC and DI. And we discussed about Spring Boot annotations. We discussed about Spring Boot annotations. Here we discussed about setter injection, and we discussed about constructor injection, and we discussed about field injection. Setter, constructor, and field injection we learned. Coming to annotations of the Spring Boot. What are the annotations we have seen here? We discussed about at the rate component, at the rate service, at the rate repository, at the rate configuration, at the rate configuration, at the rate bean, at the rate bean, at the rate scope, at the rate scope, at the rate auto wide, at the rate auto wide, and at the rate qualifier, at the rate qualifier, at the rate primary. So as of now, from the Spring Boot we have learned these annotations. One is component One is
Controllers.
indirect component service repository. Those are called as stereotype annotations. What is the meaning of stereotype annotations? What is the meaning of stereotype annotations? General purpose annotations to represent Java class as a preview. What is the purpose of configuration? What is the purpose of configuration? To represent our Java class as a configuration class, we are going to use configuration annotation. Okay. Inside the configuration class, we are going to write bean methods. So what is underneath bean annotation? What is underneath bean annotation? It is a level annotation. When programmer want to create the object, when programmer want to create the object using that, then we will go for bean annotation. Then what is scope annotation? What is the scope annotation? Bean scope will represent how many objects should be created for a bean and when
sometimes
the
your voice is very slow.
what are the scopes available? Singleton, prototype, request session. What is the default? Singleton. When the object will be created for the singleton scope to be
Rupesh, please go on mute.
when the object is getting created, when IOC container start, then immediately object will be created for the singleton bean. Prototype, lazy. Whenever you call get bean, then only object will be created. Auto while. What is that auto while? To perform the different that we can use it in places, variable level, setter method level, also you can use that annotation. Okay, qualifier. What is the purpose of qualifier? What is the purpose of
Guys who are
qualifier?
not speaking, can you go on mute? Hello,
Identify
guys.
the dependent bean based on the name. Identify the dependent bean based on the name by name method. When to go for primary?
Number 682, can you please
By
go on?
type. If the bean is identifying based on the data type of the variable, there is a chance of getting the conflict problem. To resolve that conflict problem, we are going to use the primary. So when we have a interface reference variable, if the interface is having more than one implementation, ambiguity problem will come. To resolve that ambiguity problem, we can represent one bean as a primary bean using primary. Are you clear? Very good. Yeah.
Sir, I have a question. May I? Or
okay. Fine, guys. Next one. This is
sir,
a complete discussion related to Spring Boot concepts, or you can consider this as Spring Boot, or you can consider this as a Spring Core also. These are the fundamental concepts that every Spring developer should know to build a project by using Spring Boot. Every Spring developer should know the fundamental concepts to develop the projects by using Spring or Spring Boot. Next one. Post construct pre-destroy. Those are not from Spring Boot. Okay, so you can add those things also. Post construct and pre-destroy. These are not from the Spring Boot. These are from the Jakarta. But Spring Boot will recognize those annotations and will execute our lifecycle methods. Okay, fine, guys. Good. Next one. I will update these final notes of the Spring Boot. Whatever the topics that we have discussed, I have separate notes for that. I will update that notes. And before coming to tomorrow's session, I want you to complete database setup. Some people already having the database. Some people don't have. I want you to install MySQL DB server. Okay, this is a server software, and I want to install MySQL Workbench, which is client software. Server software will be available, client software will be available. Inside the server, tables can be created, we can store the data. To communicate with the server, client software is required. MySQL server setup, MySQL Workbench. Workbench, this is a client software to communicate with the server. This is one task. And second task, developing first data JPA application to insert employee record into MySQL database table. That is what I am going to explain tomorrow. But before coming to the class, help learning. You have to try. If you got success in your first attempt, your learning skills are good, easily you can survive in the industry. If you are not able to develop the first application of data JPA, you are still dependent on the trainer. You need to reduce that dependence. You need to become a quick learner and self-learner. So for these two concepts, I will give the videos. They are already available in our YouTube channel. So I want you people to go through those videos and complete the assignment before coming to tomorrow's session. Let me show you that video. YouTube. MySQL setup Ashok ID. Okay. Yeah, setting up MySQL database on the Windows step-by-step tutorial. DB server and workbench setup I have explained, guys. In this video, I will show you how to install database server and how to install database client. That is for MySQL setup in your system. Okay. Then next one, data JPA MySQL Ashok. Okay. Spring data JPA with Oracle DB I have given. Same thing you can do with the MySQL database also. Spring data JPA application with Oracle database available. You just need to use, you have Oracle, then go with Oracle. If you have MySQL, go with the MySQL database. So this is the video that I want you to refer before coming to tomorrow's session. In this video, I have explained how to create that project and how to communicate with the database by using our Spring Boot application, by using Spring Data JPA. So from tomorrow, a new module is going to start for us. That is the Data JPA. It is used to communicate with the database. Very easily, you can communicate with the database without writing the queries. You can perform the CRUD operations in the database by using Data JPA. Very, very powerful, very advanced framework in the market. It is the advanced for Hibernate also. You don't need to learn the Hibernate nowadays. It is outdated because of Data JPA only. Tomorrow onwards, we are going to learn this Data JPA concept. But give it a try. Before coming to the class, try to develop first application because you know how to create a boot project. You know how to add the dependencies. Okay, you know how to create the Spring Bin. You know what is start class, how to run the application. Just you perform these operations before coming to tomorrow's session. Is this clear? Good. Any questions for offline people? No. Spring JDBC means you need to write the queries. Data JPA means OR and frame. Tomorrow I will give the introduction. What is Data JPA? How it is different from the JDBC? Okay.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Oracle. For mostly Java projects, will go with Oracle database or MySQL. If the project is big project, Oracle. If the project is small project,
Hello, sir.
okay,
Am I audible?
good. Fine. Thank you. With this, I'm stopping for now. We'll meet in the tomorrow session. I will check whether you completed the task or not. And you two people get ready for the interview. Tomorrow after lunch, your interview will be there. Around 1:30, around we can take the interview. Okay. So if possible, please come in the format. Okay. Good. Thank you, guys.
Sir, I have a question.
Sir, are you taking Angular class also?